It's time we have a talk. Now, I've been wanting to make this video for over a week, but I guess I just haven't found the right words. That or I just didn't push myself enough to sit my lazy ass down and make this video. But either way, we're here now. And if you read the title of this video, then you know this video is not for the faint of heart. If what I am going to say offends you, I'm sorry. You know what? No, I don't care if this video offends you, okay? Alright? I don't care, because at the end of the day, I think a lot of you need to hear this. I think a lot of you need to hear what I have to say today. Alright? Now I'm going to go ahead now and say it. You ready? I'm going to say it. Netflix's Resident Evil deserves a Season 2.
Wait a minute.
What?
FBI, open up! I said it, and I do not regret it. Resident Evil. Netflix's Resident Evil show deserves a Season 2. There you go. Look at you. Look at you getting all riled up and ready to attack. I see you. I can see you through the camera lens, okay? Listen, I watched it through and through, and I have some things to say. This is it. This is my official review of Netflix's Resident Evil show, which, if I'm honest, wasn't really that bad. Now, to preface this, I'm a huge Resident Evil fan, okay? Huge. One of my favorite series of all time, okay? Gaming-wise. And I also like the animated movies, you know, with Vendetta sitting at the top of the throne with its ridiculous storyline and ridiculous fights. But enough of that. Resident Evil is one of my favorite just franchises in all of gaming. It is great. It's fun, you know. It has the horrorness, it has the wackiness, the wildness that I like. You know, it takes itself so serious in situations where it just shouldn't. You know, its universe is just so wild that even the most ridiculous of moments is taken serious. You know, like Chris punching a boulder into a lava pit. You know, like things like that are what make Resident Evil so special. Or Salazar's massive statue just, you know, walking down the walkway chasing Leon in Resident Evil 4. Moments like that are what make Resident Evil what it is, in my opinion. While it does have its survival horror roots and all these different, you know, factors to it, the lore, the story, and you know, it's those wacky, just fun and just specific Resident Evil moments is what really makes it stand out amongst all the other survival horror genres. You know, it's its own thing. Resident Evil is its own thing, and in a lot of ways so is this show. I'm not gonna lie, I watched it because I'm a big fan of Resident Evil. Alright, well, as most people just didn't watch it or hated on it immediately because it was Resident Evil, I wanted to watch it mainly because it was Resident Evil. You know, it was a Resident Evil inspired show, you know, by the same title, and I wanted to see what it was gonna be about. And what I saw left me pleasantly surprised. Now, this video is going to be jam full of spoilers, most likely. I'm not going to be breaking down the entire story or anything like that, but I am going to be talking about certain plot points, certain things that, you know, kind of enforce my love for it and why I genuinely feel like it deserves a Season 2. So if you haven't watched it and plan to, or if some of the things I'm saying currently make you want to just check it out, I suggest doing so before watching the rest of the video. But if you've watched it already, you've already made your decision, or if you just don't want to watch it because you decided you just wanted to hate on it like the rest of the internet, by all means, you know, if you want to watch this and just to kind of see what I have to say, then, you know, go for it. So first, I'm going to start off with the characters. Billy and Jade Wesker are essentially our protagonists, with like Jade being like the set star, like she is the official main character. Billy is like, you know, the runner-up. Now, the show begins with our two characters, Billy and Jade, moving into their new home in New Raccoon City. Now, that right there already kind of cements, like, okay, this is gonna have that wacky weirdness that, you know, Resident Evil tends to do. I can genuinely see, if this wasn't a show already, I can genuinely see, you know, either a side game like Revelations 3 or like even a future main title saying, you know, having a note or something, or a reference to a new Raccoon City being built in a certain location. Now, this location just happens to be somewhere in South Africa. Now, you know, which, you know, and if you played Resident Evil 5, you know, stands out quite a bit. And you know, the show has a lot of the teen drama kind of stuff, you know, a lot of the stuff that Netflix is known for, which is in a way a lot of the reason why some people don't like it. Now, I look past that because essentially, you know, they are, you know, trying to fit Resident Evil, you know, type story into a, what can I say, drama show. You know, this is essentially Resident Evil if it were a drama. It has a lot of this teen drama. It genuinely does. I can get why that's a turn off for people. If it is, I totally understand. I get it. I genuinely do. But I won't lie. If you let that stop you from, you know, seeing the show all the way to the end and really seeing what the show has to offer in terms of story and world building, like, I think you're missing out. I think that, you know, you should try to get past that, because I won't lie, the teen drama stuff kind of lasts quite a bit in the first season, but once it's out, it's pretty much out, you know. Then it gets into the nitty gritty, the weird science-y and underground secretive conspiracy type shit that Resident Evil is essentially known for. Well, besides its, like, you know, unkillable one-liner protagonists and shit like that. So, oh, and puzzles, which this show actually has. So already this show does a lot more than like other past iterations of Resident Evil stuff. And I'm not talking about Welcome to Raccoon City. We're not gonna talk about Welcome to Raccoon City because that's for another video. I know that movie came out like late last year, but I'm gonna make a video about that because I got some things to say about it. So, you know, they moved into this new town, this new Raccoon City. Jade's not feeling it. Billy's trying to be open-minded to it. You know, already you can see the contrast between these two characters. You know, they have their moments where they butt heads a lot, and I get that. It's normal, sibling rivalry kind of shit. And then there's Wesker. And it's also in the first episode that the the hated and memed on Zootopia porn line is used. Now, I'm not gonna lie. When I saw that, it was weird. But, you know, after watching for a long period of time and having sat there and thought about it, I can see what the show is genuinely doing. Like, it forcefully places itself in our timeline by, you know, having these really over-exaggerated, like, lines and things like that. Like, oh, yeah, the cafeteria is vegan, you know? Or, hey, Zootopia porn. And like, well, I get that could be a major turnoff for people. Things like that don't really bother me. I don't really care about, you know, the show just trying to be kind of satiric in nature and just kind of openly talk about things that, you know, are in today's society and stuff like that. It's not a big deal to me. You know, if you let that bother you and stop you from watching the show, I mean, that's you. But those aren't even main points of the show. I just wanted to point that out. Now, moving forward in you know, the first couple episodes, then we meet Wesker, played by Lance Reddick. Whoa, oh shit. Oh shit, I hear it now. I can hear it. It's bouncing off the walls.
That's not my Wesker because Wesker's not black. They're trying to make Resident Evil woke by making Wesker black.
Shut your stupid.
So, now that we got that out the way, before, before anyone says, well, Wesker's not black, you gotta remember, this is a alternate take on Resident Evil events. It uses Resident Evil events to essentially create the storyline that's being used in the show. And B, Lance Reddick is one of the best damn things about this show. And that's not saying it, and I'm not saying that in a way that's like, oh, you know, the show's crap, but at least he's good. No, the show's actually pretty good, and he's like the cherry on top. So we meet Wesker, and again, Lance Reddick kills this role in more ways than one. The man owns this character, this iteration of this character, and does such a good job with portraying him. You know, if anyone denies that, I mean, you're free to think what you want and be wrong. He really does do a great job of playing this version of the character, and many other iterations of the character too. I'll get to that in a second. And another character we meet in this little town of New Raccoon City is Simon, who is just some boy who's good at hacking conveniently and helps Billy and Jade sort of uncover the secrets of Umbrella and you know, and everything like that, and what happened to the original Raccoon City. But he also happens to be the son of another very important character by the name of Evelyn. I don't know why this name is just constantly being used in the franchise. Like, we have Evelyn in Resident Evil 7 and, you know, in 8, but You know, it's not the same Evelyn. You know, don't get me wrong, but they could have named her anything else. Maybe it's a callback, I guess. But Evelyn is essentially the new head of Umbrella, and is essentially Wesker's boss / partner, and they're working on a new drug called Joy, and it's supposed to be the new hottest thing. But she's essentially the big villain. For the most part, she's threatening. She tries her hardest to keep Umbrella's secrets, you know, very, very much hidden, and is a huge threat to Wesker and his family. So she's the big kind of villain for this portion of the story, and potentially in the future if the show gets a second season. Now there are many more characters, but those are the ones we're gonna focus on because they're kind of like the big main ones for like this part of the story. Now let's talk about the story. Now, as I stated earlier, you know, I kept saying this part of the story when I spoke about the new Raccoon City part of the show. And the reason I stated that is because this show takes place in 2 different timelines. One of them being the present timeline in New Raccoon City, and the other being in a futuristic post-apocalyptic world where our full-on protagonist, Jade, is traversing the world trying to find, I guess, a cure for what happened to the world, which we don't know fully as of yet what happened. That's something that they're leaving room for in season 2. Now, I won't lie to you. At first, when, you know, the show starts off in the current era with, you know, New Raccoon City and you know, Billy and Jade and Wesker moving into their new home. But then it cuts to the futuristic stuff, and I won't lie, at first it was a little odd for me because there were some moments in there where it genuinely felt like I was watching more of like a Fallout 4 based show, which there is a Fallout live action show being made, and I'm excited for that too, but it genuinely felt like I was kind of watching a bit of a Fallout live action show instead of a Resident Evil in certain moments. But it wasn't until the story continued for both the present and the futuristic timeline that I realized, no, this is genuinely a Resident Evil, a new Resident Evil take, and like it does so in such a way that at first doesn't seem like Resident Evil. Like it doesn't seem like it's at all what it tries to be, but when you see everything unfold, it genuinely is what it's trying to be. And I know what you're hearing me say, what I'm saying, it doesn't make any sense. But you need to see essentially the present timeline for the first season play out, and slowly from there you start to kind of piece together everything in the future timeline and see why things are the way they are and why they work. And as I stated, Jade is our full-on protagonist running away from Umbrella, who are now like their own little superpower and dictate the world. They're literally the Brotherhood of Steel, which is like a faction in Fallout, the Brotherhood of Steel, but of this universe. And honestly, it's kind of cool, like seeing them just be this kind of tyrannical group and trying to chase down Jade. It's really wild. And there's this character that they have pretty much chasing after, and he's fat. And it's okay, I can say that because I'm fat too. But he honestly, at first, you know, he's just this obnoxious character who has who brings a bit of comedic relief to certain moments in the show. But in a certain episode, he goes haywire and just literally starts massacring a massive horde of zombies. And then, you know, with some badass rock and roll playing in the background. And that's when it really hit me. This is Resident Evil. This is that classic B-movie action shit that Resident Evil is very much known for. And you might say, that's not right. Resident Evil is a B-movie action movie just broken down into a video game, okay? And it's especially the older games. And so, like, it really was a really wild moment. Like, this show is full of that. Really wild moments that are just like, this is happening. And, you know, it just fits. Like, it's weird because it just fits. Like, where the show goes from, like, being very serious, but then the show just goes off and just does something just completely wild. And then you're just kind of like, okay. One of the moments that stand out to me the most is the The classic Evelyn moment in the future timeline. And yes, Evelyn is still there in the future, where she just breaks out into song and dance, and you just kind of forget where you are and what year it is, and you're just kind of sitting there wondering what is going on. But as in usual Resident Evil fashion, even the most wildest shit has an explanation behind it. And this show does a great job of doing that every single time it does it. Every time something wild and just weird happens, there is an explanation for it. This show does a very good job of being very convoluted in a very Resident Evil-like manner. And also utilizes a lot of the older Resident Evil games lore as a way to kind of catapult itself into the direction that it's headed. Things like, you know, Wesker's death in Resident Evil 5. That game came out in 2009, and I don't entirely remember if that game also took place in 2009. I'm sorry, but you know, at some point it's mentioned that, you know, Wesker died in 2009 in a volcano, and now you're hearing me now, and you're like, wait, isn't Wesker in the show? Yeah, he is. That's right. Clones are back, baby. You know, last time we saw clones was in, you know, the old movies with Alice and her band of clones and early 2000s slow-mo jump kicks and shit. And, you know, the reveal for the whole clone thing is actually done very, very well. Like, you know, you go through this whole show and there's this sense of like something's off here, you know? I literally I watched the entire show and just sat there thinking, you know, what is the catch here? I get it, you know, the little girls the girls are trying to find out what's going on with Umbrella, what happened to the original Raccoon City, all that good stuff. But what else? What is up with Wesker? And it's when they reveal that essentially their father is a clone of the original Wesker, whom we also get to see in the show wearing his classic black leather outfit with the shades. Like, it's honestly a really cool moment, you know, for a lot of people. I saw people clowning it on Twitter saying, oh, he looks more like Blade. But like, I have to ask, is that really a problem? Like, it looks badass. He looks like Wesker if he was played by Lance Reddick. Like, it was done so well. It's perfect. It was honestly perfect. And his, you know, while we didn't get too many dialogue lines through, you know, him being the regular Wesker, what we did get, like, felt like him. And then the interactions with the other clones. Yes, there are other clones. We actually get to see one of them interacting with Billy and Jade and refer to himself as their uncle, and his name is Bert. Get it? Because Albert. There's actually another clone named Al. Then there's their father named Albert, and then there's Bert. But Al's dead. It genuinely felt like a Resident Evil story, you know, but just told in the format of like a TV show, using the game's lore to kind of catapult itself into like a whole new direction that we have never seen and never would have thought we would ever get. And it's actually really, really well done and really, really good. Now, I won't lie, you know, there are moments where the show is very slow paced. You know, it takes a while in the beginning to kind of get to the point, but it works out because it does a good job of world building. You know, learning, you know, more about New Raccoon City, learning more about Jade and Billy, and you know, essentially how they're conditioned to be by their father, and then there's even moments where they're in their own home, essentially doing and figuring out puzzles like a classic Resident Evil game to uncover their father's secret lab in their own home. Like, it sounds wild, but it's actually really, really cool and really well done. The show does a really good job of utilizing a lot of the things that are in the games and just putting them in a whole new way for the show to utilize. It's really, really well done. I'm not gonna lie to you. Again, like, at first I was kind of skeptical a little bit. I was like, okay, let's see how this goes. But as it progressed, it got better. And once you got to the nitty gritty of the story and the lore and what was going on, it got really good. Like, I wanted to know more, and I still want to know more. And the show makes a lot of references to like monsters and things like that. There's lickers in there, and then there's the zombies and the zombie dog, like I stated earlier, the giant worm. Like, the giant spider. Like they did a great job of utilizing enemies that are in the old games and just placing them in this new world, you know, and in a way that doesn't just feel like a reference. There's even this moment where Jade was kidnapped by this other guy who was hunting her, who was part of Umbrella, and essentially at some point they see some guy with like a sack over his head and a chainsaw, and it was a direct reference to the chainsaw enemy in Resident Evil 5, and it was so cool to see. Like, it was a random thing. He wasn't like a zombie or he wasn't infected or anything like that, but it was just so cool to see, you know. Like, it genuinely feels like the people who wrote the show are, you know, fans of Resident Evil. They understand the lore, they understand the story, you know, and they get the iconic monsters and stuff like that and characters, and they took that and did something original with it. And because of that, I don't feel like this show should be penalized for that. I think this show is actually pretty well written, you know, and I think that it has a lot of potential. You know, this is its first season, and of course fan reviews, fan feedback, you know, is something that, you know, is needed to kind of steer it in the right direction, make it better. And I do think that with the proper feedback and things like that, the next season and, you know, maybe couple seasons could actually really make way for like a really good Resident Evil show, something to have alongside the games while we wait, because, you know, we do have the Resident Evil 4 remake coming out. We have no knowledge about the next main game in the series, whether it be 9 or, you know, whatever they're gonna call it, you know. So, you know, it really could be a really great thing, but sadly I don't think that the fandom is gonna allow it. I don't think so. I think this is just gonna be another Cowboy Bebop moment. I you know, which another show that I also did enjoy for a number of reasons. It wasn't perfect, but you know, but enough. But that's another video for another day probably. And, you know, it's just a shame. Like, I definitely get the stigma against live actions and things like that, but, you know, at the same time, we have to really sit there and analyze something and really pay attention to, you know, what's done. And what I mean by that is you can kind of tell when, like, a project has a soul being put into it. You can tell when, you know, there are writers and storytellers that care about what they're trying to do. You know, they're 100% well aware they're not telling an exact story that's told in the games, because, you know, that story's there. If you want to know what happened in Resident Evil 1, play Resident Evil 1. You know, there's nothing wrong with doing something original and utilizing the old lore to kind of do so. If anything, that's probably the best scenario for something of this caliber. But again, I don't think that the fandom is really going to allow this to prosper into something great. I do hope it gets a season 2 so we can see it, you know, kind of flourish it. What was that word? I do hope it gets a second season so it can flourish into something, you know, bigger. Maybe, you know, and even if, like, Netflix still decides to give it the axe, maybe they can at least allow a second season to kind of tie up those loose ends. You know, that'd be at least, you know, that'd be good enough for me. Put a fitting end to Jade and Billy and Wesker's story in this telling of Resident Evil. I'm genuinely serious. I genuinely enjoyed my time with it. This is not a meme. It was a good show. I can tell that there was a lot of love put into the storytelling for it, you know, and these are people who definitely played Resident Evil and understood how wacky and wild it gets. You know, there's a lot of wild and wacky moments in this that can only be explained by it's Resident Evil. I'm gonna end this video here. So if this was a coherent review, then definitely let me know if you enjoyed it. Hit that like button if you enjoyed it, or if you hit the dislike button because you don't agree with how I feel about the Resident Evil show, do that. Hit me with them dislikes. I don't give a shit. That's sort of part of that's part of the experience of this video, okay? And again, I did state that there would be videos probably covering the Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City and potentially the Cowboy Bebop live action show. You know, and it definitely probably depends on how good this video does. So if you definitely want to see those videos, let me know in the comments down below as well. I have been your boy, Sir James Insane. And if you like this video, again, hit that like button. If you're new around here, subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next one. Stay sane, play games, and above all else, remember, somebody loves you.